I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Republic. Shukran.
Thank you. I will not start by commenting on the procedural point that you have mentioned, Mr. President, but I will actually focus on the essential issues which are supposed to be of interest to the members of the Security Council. I welcome the Secretary General, and I would like to allude to what he mentioned at the outset of his briefing, that the General Secretariat does not have all the information necessary to accurately analyze and evaluate the situation in Syria due to the fact that the UN is not present all over and throughout Syria. This is exactly what was said by the General Secretariat with polite humbleness, as they mentioned that they are not privy to all the information relevant to the Syrian situation, notwithstanding the fact that the UN has an OCHA office in Damascus and there are dozens of UN agencies operating in Syria, in addition to 13 international non-governmental organizations also operating in Syria. However, some of our colleagues in this Security Council who have shut down their embassies in Damascus now are totally disconnected from credible information, and they found a trove in information of what is known as open resources. Thus, they provided us with a myriad of information that would never serve the interest of the Syrian people or your interest in such important and significant discussion, because this disinformation might poison the atmosphere and feud sedition regarding the role of the Security Council, which is mandated to maintain international peace and security. Mr. President, the Syrian government stands ready to seriously engage with positive international initiatives which serve the interests of the Syrian people, especially ending the bloodletting throughout Syria. Throughout Syria, I'm here quoting the Resolution 2401. My country expressed its satisfaction with Resolution 2401, especially the positive directions contained therein. And in this regard, we do confirm that we have taken all the following procedures to deliver our people in Eastern Ghouta from their suffering. First, immediately after the adoption of Resolution 2401, hostilities were ceased on a daily basis, and until this very moment, from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. Damascus local time, with the aim to deliver humanitarian aid and to ensure unimpeded and safe exit of civilians from the areas controlled by terrorist groups. Secondly, safe humanitarian corridors are open for civilians wishing to exit the enclave. Third, 2 joint United Nations ICRC convoys in collaboration with the Syrian Arab Red Crescent have been sent to Eastern Ghouta on the 5th and 9th of March. Notwithstanding the foregoing, all these procedures have always been countered by the armed organizations present in the enclave, which continued, incited by their paymasters, and some of them unfortunately are members to the Security Council. They were targeting the civilians in Damascus starting 2018, as they fired more than 2,499 missiles and mortar, which claimed the lives of 70 civilians and injured 556 people. These organizations denied our people in Eastern Ghouta exit in order to continue to use them as human shields and a material for humanitarian and media blackmail. They even targeted those who managed to escape towards the 2 corridors by firing bullets and missiles. And the latest incident was on 8th of March, when what is known as Faylaq al-Rahman, which is a terrorist arm of the petty state of Qatar in Syria, targeted a convoy for civilians which was driving towards one of the corridors, a matter that led to high casualties among civilians. And by the way, That terrorist organization, Faylaq al-Rahman, was hailed by some of you because of its readiness to implement Resolution 2401. It was rather presented as moderate Syrian opposition, and there was a letter that was signed by that organization with other terrorist organizations to the Secretary General, is propagated also by some of the members to the Security Council, and this is the modus operandi of the Security Council with terrorist groups. Mr. President, the procedures taken by the Syrian government are not limited to Eastern Ghouta, because during the last days we undertook inter alia a number of procedures. First of all, we requested the United Nations and a number of humanitarian organizations to immediately send a mission to investigate the humanitarian situation in Raqqa, which was destroyed by the international coalition led by the US. Secondly, to approve the operation of humanitarian convoys to Rukban camp, provided that this aid is to be delivered and distributed by the Syrian Arab Red Crescent and the Red Cross exclusively, and not by the authorities of the US occupation or forces or the terrorist groups in Rukban. Third, 2 days ago, the SARC managed to obtain the governmental approvals to send convoys to Ghouta, Raqqa, Afrin, and Rukban. Until this very date, they did not manage to send the convoy to Rukban and Afrin, as the United Nations failed to ensure the necessary safeguards by the US and Turkish occupation forces. This is the main reason. Ladies and gentlemen, with every feat and advance by the Syrian army against terrorist groups in any given area, the countries sponsoring terrorism are very fast to launch heated disinformation campaign to distract the world from the aggression, terrorism, and occupation against Syria. This confirms that these countries have never been keen on the lives of citizens and civilians, but they were nonetheless keen on protecting their investment in terrorism, as was said by the ex-Prime Minister of Qatar. This in order to recycle the terrorism in other parts of Syria. This behavior that I have alluded to is not limited to states sponsoring terrorism. Unfortunately, it is even demonstrated by some of the senior officials of the General Secretariat. We hoped that the Secretary General, especially in light of the second preambular paragraph of Resolution 2401, we hoped that it would have provided an unequivocal legal qualification of the crimes committed by the so-called international coalition led by the United States against our people in Syria, and the procedures ensuring ending this aggression. We also hoped that the Secretary General would provide us with unequivocal legal qualification of the acts of the invading Turkish forces to a very dear part of our territory, especially against our people in Afrin, and the procedures ensuring ending this Turkish aggression, as well as an unequivocal and clear legal description of the presence of the US forces on the Syrian territories without the approval of the Syrian government, and the procedures ensuring ending this occupation. Mr. President, the Arab Republic of Syria reaffirms its right to defend its citizens and fighting terrorism according to the relevant Security Council resolutions, especially the second operative paragraph of Resolution 2401, and to fight all those who practice, fund, and support terrorism, and to work towards the restoration of peace, stability, and security, and to rebuild all that was damaged and destroyed by terrorism. Finally, I have listened to the US representative, who is again and again leveling charges against my country, and that its country will undertake procedures against my country, notwithstanding the international legitimacy, exactly as they have done when they bombarded Al-Shuairat air base in my country last year. All these irresponsible and provocative statements and declarations, and which run counter to the UN Charter, is very direct insult incitement to the terrorist groups to use the chemical weapons and to fabricate again all the evidence and proofs as they have done previously to accuse the Syrian army. I would like to remind the representative of the United States that the JIM has refused and denied taking any samples from Al-Shuairat airbase, because if it had done that, it would have categorically proved that the Syrian government is totally irresponsible and should not be held accountable to what has happened in Shaykhun. And actually, what happened from the US party is aggression. I do call upon the representatives of the US, UK, and France to put an end to their violation of the Security Council resolutions related to fighting terrorism, and that their governments should stop sponsoring the terrorist groups in my country and to stop providing them with a political umbrella to continue their crimes against the Syrian people. It's high time, Mr. Chair, that the US administration took lessons from its mistakes and to put an end to these mistakes. Isn't it enough what they have done in Vietnam, Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, invoking very cheap lies that have been already condemned by the international public opinion? And in this regard, I do remember Najib Mahfouz, something that was said by Najib Mahfouz, the Nobel laureate, and I quote, "They are liars. They know they are liars, and they know that we know that they are liars. However, they still lie, and very loudly so." Mr. President, in conclusion, the Russian Center for Reconciliation in Syria said that street war has started in Ghouta after requests of dissent by Faylaq Rahman from Al-Nusra Front. The current and these wars that are taking place right now impede the exit by civilians, and thus they are forced to find safe haven under the ground. Thank you.